Glad to be with you again. Hope you're having a great day. I'm honored today to have the Vice Rector of my church, Church of the Incarnation, with me today to share some of the good news about what's going on in the church and the rebirth of the Episcopal Church through bringing young priests in. So it's great to have you on today.
Thanks for having me, David.
So this is an exciting time at our parish because we've got things really happening. Growing congregation, getting ready to start a new satellite campus, which is really exciting. So you've been doing this for a few years now, and what led you to become a priest instead of pursuing a private career?
Yeah, so I went to, when I was in college, I was studying to be, I was in finance, so I was going to grow up and be an investment banker, and if that didn't work out, I'd go to law school. But the Lord kept tugging on my heart, and I kept not being able to get away from it. So pulled out of those opportunities one summer, took a summer, worked with a group of kids all summer, YMCA summer camp in North Carolina, and really gave that summer to prayer and thinking about what would this mean? Would it be something I'd want to do? And the Lord really opened that door. And it's been a great ride. I've been doing this for almost 10 years now, and I've had some wonderful opportunities, and it's really terrific to get to sit on the front seats and see what God is doing. I mean, you mentioned some of the wonderful things that are happening at Incarnation, but it's not just at Incarnation. There are so many wonderful things happening in the church, and I get to sit on the front row and see them all. So it's a really great vision into what God's doing.
Well, that's fantastic. And you know, I'm just a member of the congregation, just sitting there doing my part to worship and give thanks to God every Sunday, and it's so meaningful. I hope if you're not firmly entrenched in a church home, that you'll consider coming to visit Church of the Incarnation, either the traditional service, which is magnificent, or the contemporary service, which is really dynamic and a big growth factor in the church right now.
Yeah, we'd love to have anybody join us at any point. We're seeing growth in both rooms, really encouraged by young people in both rooms, kids in both rooms. You know, just last week, we started an Incarnation choir school, and it's in our traditional music program, and had 25 kids up there singing. It was really a beautiful moment.
Really, I missed that. That's great. So, yeah, great music program.
Yeah, across the room, one of our values at Incarnation is to really step into our music program and to really be more committed in both our traditional and our contemporary worship, to really care about our music program. We think it's important, and so we put a lot of time and energy into that.
Well, the traditional hymns have so much deep meaning and are really so tied in to the part of the church year that each Sunday is in. I think that's very meaningful. And
absolutely, and you know, it's funny you mention that, because it is one of our constant challenges doing liturgical worship in a contemporary format. One of our challenges is to try and figure out how can we translate that without some of the same hymn resources of the church year that the traditional hymns provide. But we have a great music leader in our music director in our contemporary worship, Becky Middleton. She does terrific work there and really has taken us to the next level in being able to match the church year and really kind of bring the story of Jesus alive in that way.
well, for so many people, song really resonates and they really remember things in a lyrical way. So
yeah, I'm not an expert in how the brain works, but people who are have told me people are more likely to learn their theology through song than they are through the spoken word, which as a preacher is perhaps a little bit discouraging from time to time, but it's great that people learn so much through song.
I'm musically cursed and I don't have any, musical ability to speak. If I sing the hymns very quietly so that I don't.
Oh, don't be quiet. We want to hear it all.
Diminish, but I personally love the spoken word and the written word, and I follow along in the program with the liturgy, which I think is so rich, and I love that we've got a big program that's got a lot of detail in it. It doesn't leave people to hunt around through the prayer book to find the liturgy.
Yeah, as a church that is committed to a liturgical tradition, but at the same time is committed to being a place where people can find Jesus or can grow in their faith, we find it really important to lower as many barriers as we can. So we spend a lot of time and a lot of resources on producing that. So I'm glad it's helpful.
Yeah, no, I really love it, and personally, I follow the Eucharistic liturgy, the Last Supper liturgy in the prayer book, just to really stay very focused in the liturgy and not drift off into abstract thought, which you can do if you're just listening to the spoken word. But anyway, it's a wonderful experience. Had another great Sunday, last Sunday, celebrating the Trinity, and which is such a challenging theological thing for a lot of people to come to grips with, and so it's always refreshing to hear more discussion on that topic.
It is, but getting to know who God is, even a little part of it, even if we don't fully understand the Trinity, getting to know who God is an incredible gift that God gives us. So it's great to celebrate that once a year.
Yeah. Well, and I think that if you haven't gone to a church where they follow the church year can be very helpful to really walking Jesus's walk.
Yeah, the church year is entirely about learning the story of Jesus. In 52 Sundays, you walk every year through the entire life of Jesus. We took a survey of our people a couple of years ago to ask, hey, where is your biblical literacy? Where are you? And one of the things that came back is we had some deficiencies, but one of the areas we didn't is people know the gospel story. They know the life of Jesus, and that was really encouraging to us because the entirety, from the colors of the clothes we wear, to of our vestments, to the hymns that you've already mentioned, to the scripture lessons, and obviously the preaching, is all about teaching people the life of Jesus. And if you do that year after year after year through a lifetime, it's really incredible the results you can achieve.
Yeah, well, and I love the 3-year liturgical cycle of following different books of the Bible each year, so that by the time they come around to the same gospel readings, it's been 3 years, and it's fresh again.
Yeah, and certainly the kind of variety that the scripture readings give us is terrific, and that's really helpful. But even just down to the basics, even beyond that, I know my little girl, she's 3, has started to pick up on the ways the colors changes and the hymns change and that sort of thing, and she's learning about how the life of Jesus is in a pattern. She talked about Lent this year. She learned about that in our little school chapel. So these things can be really powerful for kids and adults alike.
Well, that's so wonderful that your daughter has come along. Of course, as a priest's daughter,
the jokes are rampant. We don't know what's going to come out. An oldest priest's daughter.
Yeah, so that's a wonderful thing, and it's been so inspirational to see the kids participating in the worship and to see the young people. It's very encouraging that I'm not one of the youngest in the congregation, because I'm not young.
Yeah, no offense, but I certainly wouldn't think of you as one of the youngest in our congregation.
Well, there are churches that aren't dynamic and aren't bringing in young people, that I would be one of the younger members of the congregation, and that's very sad. Those are churches that are on their way out, not on their way in.
Yeah, we're really blessed at Incarnation to have a huge influx of children, of youth, and of young adults. So it's a fun place. As a young parent, it's a fun place to be involved.
Well, and it's exciting to have young priests like yourself who've taken up the vocation as part of the clergy staff that do bring a young viewpoint to things instead of it being older priests that are in the twilight of their career.
No, one of the things that's true about Bishop Burton, our rector, and has been throughout his career, is he's always had a group of young priests around him, and that's certainly true now. We have a great team. We're adding to it as we speak, and it's a terrific team to get to be a part of.
Well, that's so wonderful. And it's what I love about Bishop Burton's administrative style is that he doesn't monopolize the pulpit. He shares the pulpit with all the priests and really provides a broader spectrum of people's, revelation, and the sermons are varied, and you never know exactly what message you're going to hear because you're not stuck in a rut with somebody who is in kind of a rut preaching wise.
It's great to be a part of a team. I mean, it's one gospel, one message, one hope, but you do hear a variety of voices, and it lets everybody use their gifts and lets us reach a number of different people at the same time.
Well, it's always a blessing to me. I look forward to church every Sunday, and I hope you look forward to going to church, because it's a wonderful, uplifting experience if it's done in the right way, in the right group, and if you find a church home that really resonates with you, and I really hope you do if you don't already have one. And of course, I'm a huge fan of Church of the Incarnation, and
Well, we appreciate
would
that,
love to
David.
see you on Sunday. And I think you'll find it a very dynamic, really intense worship service that you really enjoy. And Father Kincaid is, really the administrative glue that keeps the thing going. So.
We have a great team. It's my privilege to play that leadership role, but we have a wonderful team. In our worship life, we have a great team. We have a great team in our discipleship ministries for adults and kids and students. Our work with the poor, we continue to see greater investment, both locally and internationally. And we've had a long-term commitment to North Dallas High School, which is across the street from us. It is one of the more challenging high schools in the city, despite the fact that Uptown, its immediate neighborhood, has become quite affluent again after years of decline. North Dallas still continues to struggle, but we've been with that school for over a decade now, and it's really, and by with that school, I mean that we've been with the kids who are even coming to that school. We start working with North Dallas High School kids when they're third graders and when they're first graders and when they're having struggling reading. And it's been a really exciting journey for us, and it's great to be a part with them in trying to care for that community.
Well, I mean, one of the unsung jewels that the church has underwritten and carried on so strongly is Incarnation House, which really helps some of these children that are very at risk and not with permanent homes and in very disturbing situations succeed.
Absolutely. Incarnation House is a separate 501c3, but we host it on our campus and works particularly with homeless teens. That usually means students who do not have a permanent address, not someone who doesn't have a place to lay their head at night. But one of the things that's been really terrific this year is Incarnation House students, for the first time, every single graduate that's been involved in that program has a post-graduation plan for high school. That's pretty uncommon for that particular population. And so to be able to say that every one of those kids has some real plan for what they're doing next week after high school graduation is really terrific.
Well, that's fantastic, and another great volunteer opportunity. I've done the Reading Buddies program, which the church has going to help young readers that are way behind in third and fourth grade, second grade.
One of the great gifts of the schedule I keep in this particular role is there's a lot of meetings, there's a lot of hours, but I'm able to have some flexibility. And so I spent the last year reading to a young kid, a second grader. I'm not allowed to say his name, but a second grader, and it was really rewarding. We saw real progress, and it's one of those moments that if we can't get him to be able to read soon starting in fourth grade, they read for content. So all of a sudden, then he falls behind in history, and he falls behind in science, and he falls behind in all the other subjects because he can't read to learn. So it's been great, and this little kid was such a joy to get to see him every Thursday afternoon.
Well, and that's wonderful, and that's, really, people don't realize that priests give back. They're mentoring their congregation, but then they're often very involved in charitable activities and giving as well. And
well, it's a gift to be able to be in a place where I can take an hour on Thursday afternoon and go read with this kid. I almost said his name again. And be able to go read with this kid. He made great progress, and I'm really thrilled about that. I got way more out of it than he did. The Lord teaches us that constant interaction with folks who have greater material needs than we do reminds us of the needs we all have for Him. So it was a real privilege to get to be with him every week.
Yeah. Well, the Episcopal Church does an awful lot of outreach, and our diocese, which is all the churches in North Texas, is really focused on helping the poor and is a major supporter of my charity that I'm treasurer of, the Greater Dallas Coalition, which is really making a difference in transforming South Dallas and bringing kids first in their family to college, and has a fabulous day camp that's coming up. Please go to our website and check it out. We'd love to have you come to one of our coalition meetings. It's always inspirational to hear the good news of people that are making a difference in life. And we're doing that with the Greater Dallas Coalition, and the Episcopal Diocese is a major supporter. So churches like Incarnation contribute to the diocese, and those funds are going out to help the needy. And that's one thing that I like about hierarchical churches that have a central authority, is they can channel resources and mentor young priests and do things that these standalone churches that don't have a denominational structure really can't do, don't you think?
Yeah, there are ways that we can pair together and partner together that really enable us to do things that we couldn't do on our own. Even big places like Incarnation that have lots of resources and lots of people, it can be a real partnership when we enter into with our diocesan partners and with other churches around the community. One of the things that becomes really apparent when you get to sit on that front lines like I was talking about is that you get to see all the things that God is doing. And one of the things that I joke about is when I can't come up with an illustration for a sermon, that's on me, because God is doing more than I can possibly imagine out there. One of the favorite sermons that might occasionally show up in different forms in a pulpit at Incarnation is just a list of all the myriad of things that are going on. I mean, even you just talk about the Greater Dallas Coalition. I'm not involved in the Greater Dallas Coalition at all. But one of the things that I know that's a place where the Lord is working. And it's really incredible just to know that God has got sprouts coming up and things happening all over the place.
Right. And, that's one of the purposes of this show, is to highlight people that are making a difference, that have given their life to spreading God's word through word, deed, and giving. And all of us have a place to be in the world, and to try to make the world God's real home and not let the devil run amok.
Everybody has a story with God, one way or the other. And you know that, David. Every single person has a story with God, and it's just a question of whether or not they've embraced that story or not. But God is involved in everybody's life, and everybody can contribute to the building of God's kingdom. Like I said, it's just exciting to get to see so many different things happening at one time.
Well, it is, and I know it's really important. You in the front of the room, it's really important how vigorous the congregation participates in service. And I think it's important. I feel like it's very important for people to really be involved in their worship service and sing out and say the creed, say the prayers, and participate. And that just invigorates the clergy who are up there conducting the service. And I know that's an enriching feeling for you to be leading a dynamic congregation.
It's great. The energy in a room in a place like Incarnation is really terrific. We had a guest preacher in this past Sunday in our contemporary worship, and he talked about how terrific it was to worship and lead worship and preach in a room with so much energy and so much feedback.
Yeah, well, I've given a few talks, and it's wonderful to have an engaged audience, a dynamic group that's nodding their heads and saying yeah and egging you on. I mean, one of the challenges of this TV show is that we've got an empty room here that we're sharing the good news of Jesus Christ and a great worship experience that you can have at Church of the Incarnation with an empty room and a few cameras. So it's much more validating, and I know it's much more fun for you on a Sunday to have the congregation really egging you on and saying, yay, Jesus.
Yeah, well, it's great to be here too, but Sunday morning is a special time.
Yeah, well, I love the way our church has the choir up front, and one of the things I really love is walking through the choir on the way to communion while the choir is singing. That's such a wonderful experience, and I know you being at the front of the room get to hear the great choir up close and personal all the time, which I'm envious.
Yeah, no, I mean, I spend a lot of the worship service right in between the choir and the congregation, and I have to say the choir, smaller, is still louder than the much larger congregation, so I mostly hear the choir. But
if you're out in the audience really battles the choir pretty well.
No, I've spent some time out there as well, and that's and it's special. It's good.
Well, it's wonderful that people are enthusiastic, and it's a very musical parish.
It is.
With a lot of people coming to worship there because they love song.
It's a parish with a long-standing commitment to the arts. certainly in music. Again, like I said, we have for a long time been committed to both contemporary and traditional music, and to doing that really well. Recently, we've taken some dabbles into visual art, and that's important to us as well, and figuring out ways we can use visual art and engage the artists in our congregation to better preach and explain the gospel. We did that in particular with the Church in the City campaign about a year ago this time. We commissioned a series of artwork, an art show that began to kind of explain and show life in our city. But we also, the building itself, one of the things that I wasn't involved in the design of our new building, but one of the things that we were committed to in that design was creating something that was truly beautiful and that really drew people's eyes to heaven.
Well, and it's a fabulous building. If nothing else, come visit the church just to soak up the wonderful grandeur of traditional church architecture. And there's a specialness and a wonderful feel to the church that is so enriching and spiritually uplifting.
Yeah, when we started, so I was on the plant team for our contemporary worship service when it started 12 years ago. I was in college at the time, and I was on that team, and we were committed to doing contemporary worship in a traditional setting. And for us, that has proven to be a really powerful combination. I will confess at the time, I didn't think it would work. I said, we got to get in a contemporary setting. We need something that looks more like contemporary churches. And I've got a lot of friends who worship in those. I've got friends who lead those. Those are wonderful ministries. But for us, we found the combination of traditional church architecture that teaches people things, that helps understand the gospel story. Combine that with contemporary worship has been really powerful for us. Just one example is we have a room where our contemporary worship meets called Ascension Chapel. And if you look up in the top of the chapel, there is what's called a boss. And what that is just a little cap that sits in the top of the chapel. At the bottom of it, there are the soles of 2 feet. You may wonder what the feet are about. Those are Jesus' feet as he ascends into heaven and as all the disciples look up at him. You take something like that and you show it to an adult, they learn something. You show it to a young adult, they learn something. You show it to a 4-year-old, they actually begin to grasp what it means for Jesus to have ascended into heaven. So for us, church architecture is part of our commitment to the arts.
Well, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing, and it's always so uplifting.
I'm glad it helps.
I was proud to be one of the donors to the new building, and it was really an honor, and it exceeded my expectations. So
well, we're grateful for your support. We really
so
are.
Pleased about it, and would certainly encourage anybody who's got time. The great thing about the contemporary service is they've got the same exciting content and message and music and liturgy going on at 5 o'clock. So you can go to your other church home and come check out Incarnation at 5 on Sunday. And if you haven't had communion, have an opportunity to have Holy Communion, which to me is a central part of my Sunday worship. And that's very much a part of the Episcopal Church.
Certainly, and for us at Incarnation, we continue the tradition that has been around really for thousands of years for Christians, that on the day of the Lord's resurrection, on each Sunday we gather, remember how he died, remember his sacrifice, and receive his body and blood.
Yeah, and that's, to me, I don't feel like I've gone to church if I don't have communion.
Yeah, once it gets in you, you can't get it out, right?
Yeah, and I've gone to other churches that celebrate Holy Communion in different ways, but I love the use of the common cup, like Jesus handed the cup around to the disciples. And in case you're wondering, in case you're concerned that somehow that's unsanitary, the church uses strong wine, which sanitizes, so it's a very clean process, and there's absolutely no danger of catching something from sharing the cup with other people when it has wine in it and not grape juice or some other liquid.
Yeah, I'm not an infectious disease specialist, but the Diocese of Toronto several years ago actually commissioned a study of MDs and PhDs who do that kind of work. And what they found is the common cup is probably the safest method, certainly safer than something like dipping or what's often called intinction. If you use wine with a high alcohol content and silver and you're wiping in between each person, all of which happen in our worship services, you're actually much better off than people sharing their fingers. It also has to do with the fact that the inside of your mouth is apparently cleaner than your fingertips. But that's a whole nother story.
Isn't that true? So don't be scared to come and have Holy Communion and share. If you are someone who doesn't believe in drinking alcohol, you can always just come up and take the host, the bread, and still receive the full benefits of the sacrament of Holy Communion, right?
Since the earliest days, the church is taught to receive in one kind is receive the full benefits of both kinds.
Yeah, so it's exciting, and Father Kincaid is rather reserved about the really exciting work he's doing, but this is, making a real difference in people's lives. It's so encouraging to see new people coming to Christ. One of the things I really enjoy is the Easter Vigil that we just conducted at Easter, and seeing new adults come into the church with adult baptisms of people that weren't baptized in an earlier age.
Absolutely. Look, being a place where you routinely see not just children growing in their faith, but adults coming to faith is really incredible. We are blessed to have just been to be a place that God is using to do that. We work really hard at that. We work hard at evangelism. We work hard at reaching people with the message of the gospel and being hospitable to them when they show up. We spend tons of energy on that, and then training them up and trying to impart the teachings of the gospel to them, and then empowering them to have their own ministry. All of that is kind of what we're trying to do with folks when we come across them in Incarnation. And you're right, it is an incredibly exciting place to be. It's an incredibly exciting place to get to be in ministry. And part of that is really the adults we see coming to life. It's something about when you see somebody who's not at a natural transition point in life, not a teenager, not something like that, who comes to faith all of a sudden in their 40s, their 50s, or 60s. It's really special to get to watch that happen.
Oh, I'm sure that's very fulfilling, because that really is the commission of the church, to bring people to faith and to grow the faith and strengthen the faith. So it's an exciting place, and I hope that you'll come check out Church of the Incarnation and enjoy the incredible enriching worship. And I hope that if you're an Incarnation Church member, that you've really enjoyed getting to know Father Kincaid a little more, who's really a faith-filled young priest who's just doing a great job helping the parish grow and sustain, and doing an awful lot of detailed work that has to be done to sustain a large parish. So, love to see you on Sunday. Of course, we'd love you to go to the Greater Dallas Coalition website and find out all the great things that are going on there. And even more importantly, as treasurer, please donate. Have a great day, and may the Lord be with you, and the peace that passes understanding be a part of your life. Let the Holy Spirit go to work in your life today. Have a great day. Thank you.